Let's see. Make sure this is working. Testing, testing. All right. Looks like it is working. Hey, everybody. It's been a while. So let's go ahead and give people a few minutes to go ahead and log in if they were waiting for this. And while folks are waiting, I'm going to go ahead and take a sip of this sweet, sweet energy drink I bought at the store. So sorry for running a few minutes late. I actually ended up having something pop up last second, and I had to go run and take care of it. So took care of that and got back as soon as I could. So while we wait for more viewers to pop on in for this live session, I'm sure a lot of people are out there busy. You know, it is Sunday. And as a matter of fact, I'm holding my mic in my hand now for the very reason that I'm actually in the process of getting ready to move. You know, as everybody knows, I'm due to move in August. And so, as a matter of fact, my living area is quite a mess going through everything. You know, I'm sure like all of y'all, you got to purge and get rid of stuff and figure out what you need and what you need and what you don't need. So I've actually taken to like putting stuff in baskets and kind of like separating things, and so getting that going. But on top of it, I wanted to let everybody know that I have started a battle blog. So for you guys who might not be a member of the Facebook page or on the Undivided Discord channel, I do actually have a battle blog. So in the future, all of the battle reports here on Heretic Wargaming are now going to be written battle reports. So if you're one of those folks that loves to read up on your battle reports and check them out at lunch or whatever it might be, go ahead, pop on over to the Heretic Wargaming battle blog, and I will actually probably put a. Let me grab a link to it real quick, and I will share that here for all of y'all. So you guys should see it pop up. Copy, copy. I'm gonna paste it in the chat box here, and y'all can find us over there on the battle blog. So just so y'all know, so I do have 2 battle reports on the battle blog so far, one of which is a competitive game, Astra Militarum versus Death Guard, which was a lot of fun, testing out a list for a GT that I'm going to here, and I'll talk about that here in a minute. And then I also got a teaching game in with a new Death Guard player, teaching him some of the rules. Played 1,250 points because that's what he wanted to play. So, yeah, so check out the battle blog. And so that being said, I know I did announce to a lot of people I will be going to a GT here in T minus less than 2 weeks now. I'm going to Albany, Georgia for the Triple Threat Team Tournament with my folks for Air Force Gaming. So if you guys will be at the Triple Threat, please, please, please don't be a stranger. Approach me. I'm very approachable. Say hi. Get a picture with me if you want to. I will be going around getting pictures with folks. I know Mark Perry out there. I've already told him I'm going to come say hi. And other people that I have spoken to, actually getting, to see them, meet them, and say hi. So I do look forward to seeing a lot of people out there at Albany. And yeah, this will be my first and only GT for this year due to COVID, so which is great. And then I will be out in Missouri starting in August, and so you guys in the Kansas City or Kansas and Missouri areas will start seeing my shining face out there. So I've already started making friends out there, adding people on Facebook, so on and so forth, reaching out and just trying to figure out. It seems like there's a lot of events and GTs and things out there, so I'm very excited to be out in Missouri to see everybody. So, beyond that, this is not really an update show. This is more or less supposed to be a Q&A and just talking about Chaos and all the things that have changed in the game. And so, did I forget? I forgot my damn book. Hold on a second. Let me go grab my GT book, and we'll start with talking about the GT missions. And I am back. Oh, yeah. Sorry about that. Oh. So, I'll let the thing catch up to me. And so first we're going to go ahead and discuss the good old GT mission pack, right? So the GT 2021 missions. Now, I was one of the people that I was firmly in the camp of not picking up this book, mostly because none of the primary missions changed, right? That's probably the number one thing to take away. So if you guys do have the 2020 pack, and you're strapped for cash, you know, you don't really want to spend a lot of money, get with a friend, get with me if you want to, message me, and I will gladly send you screenshots of the secondary missions out of this book. So for a few of my friends out there, I have done that. They were like, I don't want to buy the book just for the secondary mission, so I was like, cool, man. I just took a picture and sent pictures of those pages to them because while I do support, you know, the game and some of the stuff that GW is doing is kind of a little shady, you know. The fact that basically out of this whole book, you had one paragraph change and then 3 pages change of secondaries, and everything else was the same. I get where people who have the 2021 would feel a little bad about buying it, so I don't mind helping folks out, especially if your hobby dollars are thin, you know, because there are new codexes and stuff that are going to be coming out, and we're going to want to buy. So, and feel free, you guys can pop in the chat if you guys have any questions about anything regarding facts, so on and so forth. Right now we're covering the GT missions and kind of my thoughts on what changes for Chaos you guys will see or maybe look at. So I'm on the secondary missions. I'm just going to read them off, starting with the first one and move on down and just kind of discuss my thoughts on changes and things going forward. So engage on all fronts is exactly the same. You guys won't see any real differences there. I feel like an engage on all fronts is still very good for a vast majority of armies. For Chaos, I actually rarely take engage on all fronts unless I'm playing demons. I think engage on all fronts is great if you're playing demons because they have things like flamers that you can just toss small squads of 3-man flamers. They get into the quarters very, very easily. Can hide really well, you know, to constantly get those engage on all fronts points. However, there are a lot of armies right now that you got to really think about. You know, Drakari is the menace right now. Luckily, they did get hit. We'll talk about that in the facts. But, you know, Drakari and Dark Angels really love engaging all fronts, especially if it's a Ravenwing variant. And you're really not going to compete with either of those armies when it comes to this. And we're also seeing a resurgence of Eldari. As a matter of fact, there's an Eldari player that I believe went undefeated at ACO right now. And I looked at his list, and it was pretty interesting just to see like a winning Eldari, but just Eldar list, you know. And then obviously the Sean Naden list. A lot of people are playing the Sean Naden list right now, and that does engage on all fronts very, very well. So me as a Chaos player, unless I'm playing demons, that's usually one that I stay away from. The next change we had was behind enemy lines. So now, with behind enemy lines, you score 2 victory points at the end of your turn if 1 unit from your army is wholly within your opponent's deployment zone, and then 4 victory points if 2 or more of your units are behind their deployment zone. This is actually a very, very good change. As a matter of fact, I took behind enemy lines a lot when I was playing my Tyranids because Ripper Swarms and things like that are very cheap. You can just throw them in the corner and just kind of forget them. A lot of people forget Chaos can also do things like this. You know, we have cheap Terminators if you're playing CSM, which do behind enemy lines very, very well. You can do the auto-charging style things if you're playing Slaneshi Demons, which I know they're still incredibly popular out there. Behind enemy lines is almost a given, depending on the deployment zone. You know, as long as it's not Dawn of War, basically you'll take it. And just even Demons players, you know, a 5-man Fury squad, that's 2 points if you just drop them in your opponent's backfield. Obliterators, like 1-man obliterator units, like there's a lot of different things. Mutilators, there's a lot of different things that can really get a lot of mileage out of behind enemy lines. And the change to having only needing 1 unit behind their lines is actually a very, very good change. Yeah, you can only score technically 4 points, 4 turns, 5 turns if like you're super fast with bikers and stuff, which by the way, Chaos bikers are still very good, especially with warp time. So yeah, behind enemy lines is not a bad choice. We saw a change with this one used to be called Domination, Stranglehold. So score 3 victory points at the end of your turn if you control 3 or more objective markers, and you also control more objective markers than your opponent. This one I took a lot, especially as a Death Guard player. Death Guard does this very, very, very well, especially in the 5 objective missions, where you just kind of park on that middle objective, which, as Death Guard, that's kind of like your bread and butter. You do fight over the middle of the field for the most part. And then I like the change that now it's just holding, it's basically holding more, but you got to hold at least 3 objectives, right? And as Death Guard, this is not very hard to accomplish in most of the missions. All you got to do is stand on 3 and wipe somebody off one of their 3 objectives, you know what I mean? Which is something that you're going to be doing anyway. So Death Guard plays this very, very well. I also like this one as Thousand Suns. Now, that's a little untraditional for some people, because Thousand Suns is incredibly mobile, and because they're so mobile and they can kind of get wherever on the table and wipe people off objectives, usually you can go ahead and do this pretty well. So I really, really like Stranglehold. I think that the changes there were good. Our next change was no prisoners, so this used to be thin their ranks. So now instead, each time an enemy model is destroyed, unless it's a vehicle, monster, or character, add the number of marks to the tally equal to the wounds characteristic of the destroyed model. So this is essentially, wiping out opponents' models. If it's a 1 wound model, it counts as 1 tally, so on and so forth. And then you divide your tally by 10, rounding down, and that's your total points. Now, this is a direct change to kind of address things like the Space Marines, Custodes, all these armies that actually had a lot of multi-wound infantry models running around in the field, and literally you couldn't do anything except for like maybe grind them down if you could effectively kill them. Now, I don't really see myself taking this. This is still a very horde-centric pick, you know what I mean? Even against like a normal Space Marine list, let's just say they're even running, 30 Space Marines, which is very uncommon. That is still only 6 points for this, right? So, and because now it no longer counts characters, that kind of hurts it a little bit. And I do agree with the change to removing vehicles out of this. So, but yeah, you're really only going to really take this one still if you're facing like, a ton of demons, or with orcs coming up, it might become more common. Maybe like very, very Terminator heavy, like Death Guard lists, if you're running like 20, 30 Terminators, that's like 9 points right there. So, yeah, we'll have to kind of see going forward. Grind them down, no changes there. To the last, that's basically While We Stand, We Fight with the FAQ included in, so there really wasn't any changes there. I'm really a big fan still of Grind Them Down. I actually take it almost all the time with my Death Guard, and I play Necrons too, It's a very, very common choice for me, and I love Grind Them Down. And to the last, the new While We Stand, We Fight. I rarely take this one. That's actually counter to a lot of people. A lot of people love While We Stand, We Fight. For me, all my units are disposable in one way, shape, or form on the table, and so by limiting my ability to utilize my units, While We Stand is usually like in a lot of cases it's a win more, or you have this giant brick of stuff that normally people don't kill. Well, what if you run into that one thing that does kill the thing? So that's just me. So our shadow operations. So I do like how they changed it, and they kind of moved the missions around a little bit on the pages, making them a little more easy to read. Because before, it's split between pages with shadow operations. Well, now all the shadow operations are on one page, which is great. That way, like hey, these are all the categories. So raise the banners high, no changes there. Investigate signal. So this one did change. So, score 3 victor points each time a unit in your army successfully completes the following action. 1 infantry unit, excluding character, from your army can start to perform this action at the end of your movement phase if it is wholly within 6 inches of the center of the battlefield, and no enemy units, excluding aircrafts, are wholly within 6 inches of the center of the battlefield. This action is completed at the end of your turn, provided the unit attempting it is still wholly within 6 inches of the center of the battlefield. No enemy units are wholly within the center of the battlefield. So essentially, you can do this in the center of the field. It's almost like the old psychic ritual, and it does include like now you can actually kill models off the middle of the table, and as long as they're gone before you complete this action, it completes. It's still really, really bad because you can't start it unless the whole unit's in the center of the battlefield, right? And because this excludes characters, which if it includes characters, I think you would see it a lot more. Infantry units doing this are very uncommon, and because it's only worth 3 points, that's also very difficult. For chaos, I could see doing this with like maybe Dark Apostles, the 2-man acolytes that run around with them, things like that. But why would you do that? Like, you can do banners, you know. So still, I think they kind of missed the mark there. Then you have retrieve Octarius data. So this was essentially what deploy scramblers was. Now instead, you have to do this in every single table quarter, and I believe it has to be more than 6 inches. More than 6 inches away from any other table quarter. Yep. So essentially, you have to be 6 inches into a table quarter, and then you can go ahead and deploy scramblers up to 4 times. This is a good change. I feel like, you know, deploy scramblers I think was kind of a go-to for a lot of people. A lot of Chaos Space Marines, Demons lists really kind of harped on doing deploy scramblers as one of your 3. But I like this change because, yeah, they increased the points to 12, but if they only end up doing 3 quarters, it's still only 8 points. So it's a little worse, but then a little better in some ways. And I could still see taking this, you know, as a playing Thousand Suns. I could see doing it. I could also see doing this as Chaos Space Marines in some ways, you know, because Cultists still can do this. But it's not the auto take that it once was. Now you kind of have to put a little thought. Now, as a Chaos player, that makes me a little happy because this was a go-to for a lot of Space Marine players. It was a go-to for Tyranids and a lot of other armies. And so because this became a little harder for them to go ahead and get that 10 points, makes it a little easier for me to deny that. So as long as you can hold them out of 1 table quarter, that's actually very good. So yeah, I actually like the changes. It becomes a little more thought-provoking and not automatic. Deploy teleport homers. So the change here is that so if you're wholly within 12 inches of your opponent's deployment zone, but not in their deployment zone, you score 2 victory points for doing this action, and then you score 4 victory points for doing it inside of their deployment zone. Now, it is completed at the next command phase, but you can do this with infantry and bikers. Now, this opens up some very interesting possibilities. You know, you can run some min-sized Chaos Space Marine biker units, and they actually can do the deploy teleport homers very effectively. You know, now you do have to start performing at the end of your movement phase, so that you can't like turbo boost, do warp time, get into their zone, and then go ahead and do this. But because Chaos Space Marine Bikers can get within that 12-inch range just by turbo boosting or just by just naturally moving, it's 14-inch movement, sorry. They can go ahead and start this and get at least 2 points. So it does make it a little interesting, a little more interesting and kind of a niche pick, you know what I mean? As a Chaos player, probably won't ever take it. I feel like you'll still do the new deploy scramblers. You'll still do banners and stuff like that. But yeah, I do like that they changed these things around a little bit. Some other changes that we got in our secondary. So assassination stayed the same, except if you kill a warlord, you get an additional 1 point, which is good. Titan Hunters, so that did change. Now it's only 4 points for 1 Titanic model, 9 points for 2, and 15 points for 3. Let me go ahead and take a swig of drink. So is this going to be the be-all, end-all for Knights players? Not necessarily. But the good thing here is that if you choose to only run 2 large Knights, they can only score 9 victory points. So what this does is it creates a little bit more variability. It's no longer 12 points just for killing 2 Knights, which that 12 points is usually higher than a lot of these other secondaries will ever get you. So playing Knights becomes a little bit more viable, but it still really hampers your Knight playing list, because if you're going to play Knights, usually you want to play Knights. You don't want to play 9 Armigers and 2 big Knights, which a lot of people are doing. But it's still good. I do like the change, and I feel like it does add a little bit more viability to your Knight list. Bring it down. So all they did was lump in the FAQ to bring it down here on the missions. So if you guys read the FAQs before, you already know what those changes are. Abhor the Witch, they just lumped the FAQ in here, so that wasn't a big change. Now, this one is a big change with Warp Ritual, and this one right here adds a lot of interesting choices for Chaos. So if you select this objective, keep a tally of ritual points, add 1 to the tally every time a unit from your army successfully completes this following psychic action during the battle. Now, the big thing here is that it's no longer limited to just one unit. You know, before that had to be the same unit casting it 3 times, which is a big part of why you never saw it. Well, now any unit in your army, as long as you get this accomplished, can do it. Opens it up so much, because as a Thousand Suns player, as a Demons player, even as a Death Guard player and a Chaos Space Marines player, this becomes now a viability. Now, you still have to look out for the fact that people can deny you. It is only a warp charge value of 3, which is essentially an autocast. But so one psychic character can attempt to perform this action while in your psychic phase if it is within 3 inches of the center of the battle, so it doesn't have to wholly be there. And then at the end of the battle, score 3 victory points if you did once, 7 if you did it twice, and if you did it 3 or more times, you get 12 total points. This is really good. Now, it is limited to psychic characters, so you can't do this with, like, random stuff like horrors and things like that. I think that would be a little abusable. But this still does add a lot of flexibility to a chaos list. You know, before, a lot of people were taking Zangor Shamans to go ahead and do Psychic Ritual. Well, now you can go ahead and still do that, but if that Shaman dies, you don't just instantly lose 15 points, you know? It also adds a little bit more, like, viability to some of those minor psychic characters, you know, like a Slaanesh Herald. Slaanesh Heralds are psychers, you know, and they move incredibly fast, and they can still do this even after they advance. So that adds a little bit more flexibility to that Slaanesh Herald to go ahead and get you points, because, you know, points are what win the game. You could do it with Big Chicken, Lord Change, if you wanted to do that. There's just so many things that can now do this, and it becomes more of a viable option, because people can't just shut you down. They can't just kill the one character, and now all of a sudden you're out 15 points, you know? So that's really good. I like that change a lot. They also changed this one, Pierce the Veil. So score 8 victory points at the end of the battle if one or more of your units successfully completed the following psychic action 2 or more times, or 15 points at the end of battle if one or more of your units successfully completed the following psychic action 4 or more times during the battle. So one of your psychic characters from your army can attempt to perform the psychic action during your psychic phase if it is within 6 inches of your opponent's battlefield edge and more than 6 inches from any enemy models. So this is incredibly hard to accomplish, right? So you have to be right on their table edge, but more than 6 inches from their units, and then you can go ahead and do this. You have to do it at least 2 times or 4 times to max this out. Obviously, you're not going to get this done on turn 1, right? And I don't know very many Psychers that can move that far across the table to go ahead and accomplish this. Now, I did originally think, you know, maybe a Terminator Sorcerer, because you could just drop them in the corner of the table and go ahead and do this, but then they lose their character protection, and that actually makes it a very easy thing to deny, you know, if people have line of sight ignoring shots. It does become like a distraction unit, you know, just that one model being in the corner, but most of the time, though, you're not even going to be able to open a hole until at least turn 3, which means at best you're going to get 8 points from this, which isn't necessarily bad. That still ties, you know, the retrieve Octavius data or whatever, the new deploy scramblers, if you can do 3/4. So it's a weird, interesting choice. I really wouldn't look at it unless I was playing maybe Thousand Suns, depending on how the new codex is, or something with Warp Time, because I think Warp Time is definitely a need if you need to do this one. But yeah, that was an interesting choice. And then the last change we saw was with Psychic Interrogation. And one of your Psyker characters can do this within 24 inches of any visible character model. So they made it visible and then increased its range by 24. So overall, the secondaries, I feel like these are actually going to mix things up quite a bit. I've gotten 2 games so far in with the new rules. I know a lot of other people probably have gotten a lot more games with them. I am finding, hey, what up, Jake? How's it going? You still at ACO? So I have found, playing with the new missions, that I still kind of default back to a lot of the ones that I normally took. Grinding them down is still very comfortable as a Death Guard player, you know. I really like Stranglehold. You know, I like the change to Domination. It was something I already took as Death Guard, and it just increased in viability, in my opinion. With my Thousand Suns, I could definitely see taking that, and probably maybe even my Chaos Space Marines, you know. Demons, I feel like Stranglehold would probably be a gimme too. You know, if you guys are running Bloodletter bombs and things like that, you're dropping the backfield and you're taking those objectives away from people. Holding 3 or more objectives and controlling more than your opponent is not necessarily a hard thing to do. I feel like that's a great change for Chaos, you know. A lot of people are still going to use While We Stand, We Fight. I'm not one of those people. Banners is still a go-to. Like I said, the changes to Scramblers. Hey, what up, Will? The changes to Scramblers, I think, is very interesting. I think it's a benefit for Chaos because it means that your opponents are going to have a harder time scoring it, which is great. Anything that makes it harder on my opponent, I love. And yeah, so it'll be really interesting going forward. You know, we got Thousand Suns coming down the pipeline, and I'm very interested to see what ends up coming down. And so the only other change to discuss from the 2021 Unitary, or sorry, chapter approved GT mission pack was the change to auxiliary super heavy detachments, right? So if you guys weren't tracking, which I think everybody at this point was, now your auxiliary super heavy detachments only cost 1 CP as long as it matches a keyword from your army. Now it can't be Chaos, it can't be Eldari, it can't be Imperium, right? So what does that mean? Khorne Lord of Skulls, guys! Yeah! So the Khorne Lord of Skulls now becomes a hell of a lot more viable in a Chaos Space Marines list, because now it only costs me 1 CP to run one of those. On top of that, there's a lot of other super heavies. We got the Chitin Ravager, you know, you've got the Greater Brass Scorpion of Khorne. You've got all of these big hulking monstrosities. Angrath, you've got Scabathrax, you know, the big greater demons that a lot of people were kind of avoiding out of Forge World. Well, now they become a lot more viable. You know, I'm starting to see a lot of Kynel. Sorry, I can't say her name. The Slanesh, you know, super greater demon. I'm seeing a lot of lists with her running around, you know, with 4 Keepers of Secrets. It became a lot more viable because you were already strapped for CP. Well, at this point, well, now I can viably run these things for 1 CP, you know. It just opens up so much more. And then on the flip side, you know, when it comes to your opponent's armies, well, Necrons, you're never going to see a super heavy because monoliths are terrible. You might see one of those big, I can't remember the big shooty scarab thingies. And then Eldar, you're not really going to see Wraith Knights. So, if anything, it's just a big positive. You know, Baneblades still aren't great. Shadow Swords still aren't amazing. Imperium, you might start seeing probably more Astraeuses and stuff like that might start coming out. You know, I've already seen a few lists where people just super buff up a Falchion or a Astraeus or something like that, and it still does its thing, you know, because Ultramarines, you can still run Guilliman with like an Astraeus, and it still does the things. So, but I think as a Chaos player, it just, if you guys haven't started looking at running those massive Lord of War Greater Demons, it just adds the ability to do those things. I know one of my teammates, shout out to Tim out there, he is actually running Angrath in his team tournament list for the GT I'm going to, and it actually added a lot more viability for him because he's like, oh cool, now I'm not stuck with, you know, 4 CP, now I'm stuck with 6 CP. Opens it up his list a lot more. So hopefully, I hope going forward we start seeing a lot more of those Ox super heavy detachments and people like running some very clever things. I'm already seeing some Lord of Skulls come back out of the woodwork, so that Ox super heavy detachment change definitely opened up, I think, a lot more options for a lot of people. So I'm excited to see what people do with that. So that's the end of the discussion for the GT book. And so, of course, if you guys have any questions, anything you want to discuss, hit me up. Throw it up in the chat real quick while I take a sip to wet my whistle. Alright, so the next thing let's discuss is points values. So, for Chaos, there wasn't really that much of a change in points. Sad days. But the points values actually did impact the meta quite a bit, I feel like. And so this is kind of going to be a discussion of the facts a bit, too. Obviously, there'll be a discussion of a change in the facts a little bit later, but we'll just kind of focus on points right now. So first, let's talk about Drukhari, right? So, big Booga Bear in the room. Drukhari is oppressive. Was oppressive, I should say. Super cheap, super effective. Everybody and their mom is running Dark Technomancers. If you guys looked at the ACO list, I mean, that's obviously, it was obviously a problem, right? Me, myself, I played against a list that was literally Matt Butchert out there, and he's actually at ACO. He lost to John Lennon and Brad Chester. Those were his only two losses. So his list was literally all liquefier racks and all grotesques with liquefiers, right? And you guys can probably see, wow, that is stupid, right? And it was stupid, how many shots he was getting. They were all damage 2, +1 wound, AP a zillion. It was ridiculous just the amount of damage that Drukhari could do, right? And there was really nothing, especially if they went first, you couldn't hide because of how fast they moved, unless you were running some European tables with so much dense terrain that you could hide your whole army regardless of where people are at, right? And so the changes to Drukhari, I feel like, were justified. Now, we did see some fact changes to the core rulebook. So, as an example, and this was how it worked in 8th edition. I'm surprised it took this long to change, and it did impact Chaos a little bit. But when you generate additional attacks, they do not gain any rules that generate additional attacks, right? So, as an example, with the Succubus, they got 12 attacks. Well, when it misses and it generates an extra attack, it doesn't do 2 attacks for every missed attack anymore, right? Great change. For us as Chaos, that means your Emperor's Children that are using excessive violence, they can no longer keep generating infinite attacks as long as they're killing models. I think that wasn't intended anyway. Whenever I would use excessive violence and that would happen, I would actually be like, all right, yep, I'm just going to generate one set of attacks. Because it felt bad when you had a Lightning Claw Terminator literally kill like 30 orcs just by himself. He's just like, I'm going to kill all these things. It just never feels great, for you or your opponent, So that was a big change, and I think that was a merited change. On top of it, we saw Raiders go up by 10 points. Great change. That means you're going to probably see on average one less Raider, which I don't think anybody's going to be sad about. And then the other points changes. Drazar, he went up in points, which I think is very merited. I actually had Drazar almost one-shot one of my Leviathan Dreadnoughts, which was ridiculous to me because I'm like, this 250-point model just took a 120-point character to the face and he just literally almost killed me. So, the double fighting and you fight last and all the stuff that Drazar does is just layers upon layers. And he's still incredibly, incredibly good for 145 points. Not going to lie. You're still going to see Drazar like crazy, but any points additions just means there's less other stuff in the Drukhari list, and that was about it for their point changes, but I feel like the point changes just mean you're going to see a little bit less stuff in a Drukhari list, and then whenever you kill a Raider, you're actually removing more of their list, which that's literally the name of the game against Drukhari, is how fast can you disembark them from the Raiders and get to the stuff that really is the threat of the list, And then, like Will said, there was no changes in Death Guard, which was super, super surprising. I don't know about you guys. I was fully expecting Death Shroud Terminators to go up in points. Now, it's good because Death Shroud Terminators, while great, they're not like OP by any form or fashion, right? Now, I would like to see some adjustments in Death Guard points in that I still feel like Blight Lord Terminators are heads and tails overshadowed by Death Shroud Terminators. Now, I don't think they need to go down by like 5 points apiece, but a few points to kind of create a little bit more disparity between Death Shroud and Blight Lord Terminators would be amazing. I feel like Poxwalkers are still value added. Even if they had gone up by 1 point, I would feel a little bad about that, but not too bad. Cultists are still cultists, and really, I'm happy with where Death Guard is. I actually really love Death Guard. I love the way the Codex functions. I would just like to see some of those other options become a lot more viable with the points adjustment. Mephitic Blight Haulers at 140 are still not bad, but they still aren't 140 points worth. I feel like a lot of they kind of justified it in that these are essentially Terminators with wheels. That's kind of what they operate like, right? And yeah, that's kind of what they do, but kind of not. They really have no close combat punch. It's really all about the ranged weapons. So when you look at a Mephitic Blight Hauler for 140 points, and then you look at a Contemptor with Volkites at 150. there's kind of a feels bad moment there, you know. And I was also very surprised that Volkite didn't get touched. I fully imagine at the next chapter approved, whenever that may end up being, or next points adjustment, Volkites will be going up. Like point blank, I think that Volkites are good, but they definitely overshadow all the other options. You know, we're seeing a lot of Iron Hands players gravitate towards them. You're seeing a lot of them in like Ultramarines lists. You're seeing them in Raven Guard lists now. Um, they're very good, but they literally overshadow all other options, you know, and that's kind of where we were at with Butcher Cannons and stuff in 8th edition. So there's definitely an adjustment that needs to be made. I don't think that I think that the Foul Blight Spawn wouldn't go up. So like the Foul Blight Spawn, I feel like is good. He's at like 85 points right now. Which that's not bad for a 4-wound character. Yeah, his flamer's really good, and yeah, you always spend a CP for stench bats, but he's a good character for that points cost. He's still very expensive, you know what I mean? Like a Space Marine captain costs that much, you know. And you still have to spend 10 more points to get him the rerolls or whatever it might be. So he ends up being more than the 85 points that he costs, you know. And I'm actually looking at running 2. You know, if you guys check out the battle blog, I did put up a report where I ran 2, and I'm actually really enjoying 2 Blight Spawns. And they're not as good as they used to be. You know, they used to be the damage D3, variable strength. You know, they were arguably better than what they are now. You know, but yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see some adjustments with Death Guard come the next thing. I just really hope that like they just adjust the things that aren't good to become more good, like Blight Lord Terminators. You see a lot of people running them, but they could definitely use a tweak. You know what I mean? Because as Death Guard, you know, we are getting towards the top of events, but I don't think I've seen a first place Death Guard finish in a while. So, you know, so on top of the other points changes, let's keep going. So we did see changes to Space Marines in general, you know. Raven Guard, the Apothecary got hit real hard, you know. That was like, what, 25 point adjustment, which highly merited because of how many points that damn Apothecary brings back every game. So it just creates a little bit more, like, you have to really think about when you're going to take it. Now, everybody's going to still take the Chief Apothecary. I'm not going to fool myself and be like, people aren't going to take it. But because they take that Chief Apothecary, now they get less weapon options or upgrades, or, you know, maybe it impacts how many squads they get. So, yes, and we did get Inexorable Advance into Force again. Thank you, Will, for reminding me that. That's amazing. I used it yesterday against Astra Militarum. It's awesome to be able to hide in a forest and then just walk on out and advance out like nothing ever happened, charging through forest. It's great that we got it all back. Yeah, I love that about Death Guard, is the fact that, you know, terrain is just doesn't impact you. You don't care. I'm just going to walk right through this. So absolutely love it. But yeah, so with the Chief Apothecary, people are still going to take it, but it just means they get less other stuff, right? And then we also saw changes to other things. Talon Masters went up 10 points, you know. The Attack Bites went up points. So all good things, right? But on the flip side, and we're starting to see that right now, Land Speeders went down in points, and Land Speeders are seeing a massive resurgence, you know. If you guys looked at the ACO list, a lot of the Raven Guard, or Raven Wing lists were running like Landspeeder Typhoons and Tornadoes and whatever the hell else they're called, whatever other wind word they decided to use. And they're very good for how points efficient they are. And not only that, they become even more points efficient. So I have a feeling we're going to start seeing a lot more of that style of a list. A lot more speeders will start ending up in lists, which isn't necessarily bad. I myself, I love speeders. When I played Blood Angels, I loved putting multi-melta speeders on the table. But it's kind of centralizing more towards multi-melta spam. It's still viable. You know, a lot of people were arguing it's going to go with Drukhari. Well, multi-meltas are great into Raiders, which disembark the Drukhari, and then you can go ahead and blow the things up on the table with things like Talon Masters. So I think it's still there. It's not going to go away anytime soon. So just kind of be prepared. As a Death Guard player, I hate multi-meltas. So more multi-meltas makes me a sad panda, but it is what it is. You know, just got to pick up things faster. But yeah, the nerf to the Chief Apothecary was definitely merited, and I'm glad with that. As far as other points adjustments, the Dimakaran going up in points was great for us as Chaos players. The Dimakaran was really, really bad into Death Guard if you could not deal with them because their free mortal wound thingy where they eat dudes really sucked. And because they did so much damage, they would straight pick up Death Shroud Terminators or characters or whatever they touched. So them going up in points actually just means that there's less other stuff for us to deal with. Dimacarons are not hard to kill. They're hard to kill once they get the feel no pain going. So, which is good for me. Wasn't really seeing them around here, but a lot of people on TTS, and I complained about them too, was just like for 225 points, those things were dumb. So them going up quite a substantial bit just helps out a little bit in that matchup. Now, they did get drops. Swarmlord went down 30 points, which was very surprising. Swarmlord was very good, and him going down 30 points made him even better. Gene Stealers went down, stuff like that. So I was surprised they did not give a hit to Hiveguard, because Hiveguard are very centralizing in a Tyranid list. So I was surprised about that. I don't think we're really going to see a lot of Gene Stealer cult popping up anytime soon. Tau regaining the Montka gives them falling back and shooting. So, they did change the way that remaining stationary and shooting is worded now. So basically, as long as you remain stationary, you can fall back and shoot. Which was actually a massive, massive, massive change, because that actually gave fall back and shoot to a lot of different units. And it kind of made me start looking through. Now, Death Guard does remain stationary, but they lose it when they fall back, which made me sad, because I get to fall back and shoot. No, I don't. Sad days. But that adds a lot more, power to that ability, So Tau, they regain their fallback and shooting. So we're starting to see that, Richard Siegler is right now up at the top of ACO because they did rule that Montka gave you fallback and shoot. So that's actually very, very good for ACO to kind of give us some insight into maybe what we might see with crisis suits and things like that going forward for Tau. On top of that, that does add a little bit more viability to maybe some other options. I haven't really had a chance to look through and see what we get that remains stationary as Chaos. But that does mean that some other units, as far as Space Marines, become a little bit more viable. It gives them fallback and shoot now. And it kind of makes me feel like maybe that's a glimpse into maybe 1,000 Suns. I feel like 1,000 Suns are going to basically have remain stationary all the time, as opposed to, because right now they move and shoot heavy weapons without penalty. I think that 1,000 Suns might get remain stationary, which means then your Rubric Marines, your Scarabus Cult Terminators, things like that can fall back and shoot, which would be amazing, because 1,000 Suns traditionally is not a close combat army. They are a very shooting army, and that would actually basically give us an Ultramarine version for Chaos, which I think is really, really cool. Just my own personal thoughts there. So that was actually a very big change. We also got a glimpse into 1,000 Suns with the points changes with the Munitorum Free Manual. So if you guys look through it, it literally shows you all the points that are coming with the new 1,000 Suns Codex. So that actually made me very excited. Ariamon went up in points. Granted, that's probably needed. Ariamon is very, very good. But there was a lot of other things that were very, very interesting in there. Scarab Cult Terminators are only 40 points. Now, people are like, well, that's more points. Yeah, but you're also getting the third moon, and we don't know what else Scarab Cult Terminators are about to get. So that's very interesting to me. They didn't really go up. They went up 3 points, so which isn't bad. On top of that, we saw that Zangors are now squads of 10 to 20. Rubric Marines also followed suit with the other Space Marines, where you can only have up to 10 in a squad, which I can get behind. Hordes of Marines was kind of a little weird. Marines traditionally aren't in large squads. That's kind of a Black Templar Crusader thing. And that always kind of was their thing, for a long time. So yeah, it'll be really interesting going forward to kind of see what else we end up getting. And then we also saw that the 1,000 Suns get a version of the how Space Marines got, Chief Apothecary and all that, and then Death Guard got all the pathogens. Thousand Suns got a variant of that, so I'm really interested. I know a lot of people who know a lot more of the lore of Thousand Suns were really like spitballing what some of these abilities are going to be. Like, for example, bringing in the Psychic Dreadnoughts and stuff. Um, really, really cool, and I'm very excited. I got a lot of Thousand Suns, but maybe I'll have to go buy some more. And we'll have to see what becomes viable with Thousand Suns going forward. So it's just going to be really, really exciting, and I can't wait to see what Thousand Suns and Grey Knights and all that stuff bring to the meta. What other points changes? And you guys can feel free to remind me because I'm just going off the top of my head right now. So Chaos Space Marine changes. So Chaos Space Marines, really the only change we saw was Venom Crawlers going down 20 points and Land Raiders going down 20 points. Now, Land Raiders are still complete garbage. I'm sorry. They are really, really, really bad. I listened to the Long War, and shout out to those guys out there. And I will say that they made a valid point that if the Nundums, or aka the War Suit Walker sister things, keep reduce all damage by 1, but with no minimum, functionally makes them immune to bolters. And I was like, oh yeah, that's actually a very, very good point. Now I think that does argue a little bit, like, because then that makes them immune to a lot of other stuff. But that would be a bridge we'd cross later. But Land Raiders having an ability like that would make them a hell of a lot better, because at which point you have to shoot them with damage 2 or higher weapons. And by becoming functionally immune to small arms weapons, then they kind of fulfill a role similar to what they did in 7th, 6th, 5th, so on edition, back when you had armor values where literally certain weapons could not hurt your vehicles, So if you've never played a previous edition of 40K, as an example, you would have an armor value of 14 on a Land Raider, which was the absolute highest armor value you had for a vehicle. If somebody hit you with a weapon, you would compare the strength of that weapon against your armor value and roll a dice. So as an example, if I had a strength 4 weapon hit your armor value 14 and I rolled a 6, well, 6 plus 4 is only 10. I didn't penetrate your armor. Makes sense, right? So that meant that you had to shoot a Land Raider with like las cannons, otherwise you would not hurt it. Made Land Raiders a lot better. Now, there was other issues, for example, you could one-shot a Land Raider with one las cannon. Happened many, many times. But, there's ways they could have changed it to make it a little better. And I think going back to something similar to that, where large, centralizing, expensive vehicles become immune to things that, like, shouldn't really hurt them, might be something, it might be a way to give, like, value to things that were otherwise really bad. Now, I'm not saying give this to all the vehicles and stuff like that. Don't give this, but it would be, like, another way to give survivability to things like Lehman Russes, without giving them an invulnerable save, without boosting toughness, without doing all these other crazy things that they could do. So, but yeah, I think that would be really cool. But Land Raiders are really, really bad right now. Now, Venom Crawlers become a lot more interesting. Now, traditionally, Venom Crawlers were my absolute favorite Demon Engine in 8th edition. I use them all the time. There's a lot of buffs you can give with them. If you do a Greater Possessed plus Poxbringer nearby, it makes them Strength 9 with their guns, which is ridiculous. And they can actually do quite a bit of damage. Now, barring the fact that they're, Ballistic Skill 4, which becomes Ballistic Skill 3 if you got a Lord Discordant nearby. It's a lot of things that you have to do. But at 110 points, a 10 wound, 7 toughness 7 Demon Engine with 2d3 shots at strength 7 or 8 base is not very bad. And then his claws are straight 3 damage, and he gets quite a few attacks. I think there's a lot of interesting things you could do with it. Run it as Marcus Slaanesh, advance it up the field with some demons, get the charges off. Gives you some guns to go along with those Keepers of Secrets, and you can get 3 of them for almost the cost, or a little more than the cost of 1 Keeper of Secrets. Just stuff like that. It opens up a lot of doors. And I don't know. It makes me think about my Venom Crawlers, but I feel like there are a lot of other better combos in the Chaos Space Marine genre. You know what I mean? Shout out to Jake. I don't know if you're still there, but he faced a Bastion, Leviathan Dreadnought as Iron Warriors this weekend and said it was just an absolute bear to take down. And it would be, reducing all AP by 1. You can give it Delightful Agonies. You can do Weaver of Fates if that's what you wanted to do. And it creates this very, very, very powerful single piece that, while you need to stack all the buffs on it, you know, you got a 240 point model that can literally just shoot 16 autocannons at something every single turn and just pick things up, you know. There's just a lot of things that you can end up doing in Chaos Space Marine. So, and then also shout out to Mark Whitaker out there. His World Eaters list that went 5-1 with Vindicators of all things. Very, very interesting stuff, you know. So whether or not Venom Crawlers kind of find their way back into the meta, I don't know. 330 points for 3 of them is not bad, but then you kind of want to take a Lord Discordant, which I was hoping a Lord Discordant would end up like 20 points cheaper. 200 points is way too much for that, and I think he's just making up for the sins of 8th edition. But, you know, them taking away Supreme Command attachments already kind of did in that whole Lord Discordant spam thing. But yeah, we'll have to see going forward what happens with the Venom Crawlers. But yeah, really, really interesting stuff, and we'll have to see. And then the only other points changes to really discuss were for demons. So demons, you know, Lord Change went up in points, which really he did not need a points change. I don't know what the hell GW is thinking. The only reason that he was good was because of his exalted traits, and he doesn't do any damage. He just doesn't die. That's his shtick. He just doesn't die. He's the unkillable Lord Change. But them increasing his points, okay. If you're still running a Lord Change, you'll still run the Lord Change. It just means a few less things in your list. You know, maybe one less unit of cultists. I don't know, but yeah, that was a really funky. If anything, I was hoping to see Demon's points go down. I don't know why we saw a points change go up, but yeah, like Plague Bearers, they need to go down in points, guys. They need to go down at least like 1 to 2 points a model. That way we start running them a little bit more often and they're better, you know. But yeah, I think that's about it for the points changes, unless I missed something. I know I got quite a few viewers out there, so you guys can go ahead. And if there's anything you guys want to discuss, please feel free. Toss it in the chat. We'll talk about whatever. And so the last thing we discussed, or that I had on my docket, unless you guys have anything else, is the changes in the facts. Now, I already discussed a few of the changes in the facts earlier. You know, we discussed the changes to fall back and shoot, remain stationary. We discussed, you know, Will brought up the fact that inexorable advance now works again. Typhus now sort of works. Now, Typhus no longer locks you out of getting your Plague Company's Warlord traits, but he still breaks the fact that you are in a Plague Company. So you still can't take the Relic, you still can't use the Stratagem, stuff like that. I know there's an argument both ways that, like, oh yeah, he should do it. No, he shouldn't do it. Like, Typhus is a Lord of the Death Guard. Like, he's basically Mortarion 2.0. Why is he blocking me from doing the things? You know what I mean? So, I really don't feel like you'll still see Typhus here and there. Definitely in Terminus Est and definitely in Harbinger's lists. But until they really, really fix him, I really can't, because he does break so many good combos in the book. You know, a lot of the Plague Companies, for example, I take Chosen Sons for the Warlord trait, or for the Stratagem, not the Contagion, you know. I take Inexorable for the not only the Warlord trait, but also I really, really, really like the Stratagem, and I really, really like the Relic, you know. Stuff like that, you know. So we'll have to see. I hope that they fix Typhus further. But the biggest change, and I know a lot of people have hard feelings about this, the change to warp time, right? So I know the Thousand Suns one wasn't necessarily adjusted, but because they adjusted it in the main Space Marines Codex, it is what it is, guys. Warp time is dead for your suit purposes. Just leave it there. So what does that mean? What that means is no longer are we going to see people purposely taking a Wordbearer's detachment to Warp Time Mortarion. Now, for you Mortarion fans, which I'm one of them, feels bad a little bit, right? But on top of that, that was not the intent behind Mortarion. Mortarion was meant to be like literally this force of nature moving up the field. Your opponent had one turn to deal with them, and then after that, sorry, bud, you got to deal with Mortarion, right? So what Warp Time did is it created a disparity in that, well, now I can make Mortarion that force of nature immediately out the gate, and that's that, right? And so we are seeing a change to a lot of the codexes and stuff in that Mortarion is still very, very hard to deal with, but he's not like impossible to deal with, right? For you guys who face the new AdMech very, very easily handles Mortarion. But on the flip side, stuff like Sisters are going to have a harder time with Mortarion. So that's the way the game should be. That's literally what balance is that one thing can deal with it, but the other thing can't, and that's, you kind of create these triangles, right? Triangles of things that can deal with things, and us as players, especially in a competitive game, it's up to you to figure out your combo or whatever that deals with the most lists and the most threats and gets you to the top, right? And you're not going to plan for everything. You know, there should not be one model that just literally deals with everything just fine, because that's where you start creating these things where you've got, you know, Morgan Vol. She's going to be one of those that literally you're always going to see her in a sisters list until they adjust her points or something, right? And so those are bad design choices, you know, and I feel like Mortarion was well designed. But yeah, with the changes to Warp Time, it's actually very, very good, and I'm surprised that we saw it so early. I knew it was going to change with the new codex for Chaos Space Marines and Thousand Suns. If you were fooling yourself, I'm sorry, guys, but it was going to change, you know? And I think the change is for the better. Now, they did change it to where it's just Legion-centric, so that does create some weird interactions, you know what I mean? So essentially all the spells in Chaos Space Marines and Thousand Suns, you replaced Heretic Astartes with the Legion, you know. So for Thousand Suns, it's Thousand Suns. For Chaos Space Marines, if you're playing Emperor's Children, then you replace your spells with Emperor's Children, right? So me as a Chaos Space Marine player, you know, I was mixing Iron Warriors and Black Legion together, and that's still my favorite combo for Chaos Space Marines. But no longer can, because I always took multiple sorcerers and I would split the detachments. Well, now I can't have my Iron Warrior sorcerers casting their spells on my Black Legion units. So it means that I've got to kind of rethink how I'm going to utilize that codex, you know. But on the flip side, it creates a really unique prospect in that if now I want to use Warp Time, and Warp Time is one of my key goals, well, now I really have to look deep into what my Legion can do very well to maximize the usage of those spells, right? And so it no longer creates these weird cross-contaminated, like, well, now I'm going to cast Prescience on the Blightlord Terminators, and these guys have +1 to hit, and then this other unit gets 1 from Tallyman. Weird interactions you got to explain to your opponents 12 times. This is what balance looks like, and going forward, I would imagine we're going to see a lot more of these things that go away. You know, demons is it's going to change. You know, how it changes, I do not know, but I would imagine we're not going to see Epidemius working for all Nurgle demons anymore. It's probably going to be like core units or something, or core Nurgle demon units. You know, we're not going to be able to heal Mortarion anymore. You know, that's probably going to end up going out the window. And what it's doing is these small incremental changes. It's not only on nerf, quote unquote, but it's getting people in the mindset that, hey, eventually this is going to go away anyway, so you might as well get used to it. So, and that to me, and I don't know about you guys, and like I said, there's a lot of feelings about this, but I feel like that is a great thing. So now when I'm looking at a list, you know, and I see somebody, hey, they're playing Chaos Space Marines, and I go in there and I'm looking at it, I can look at it for what it is, you know, Emperor's Children, or look at it for Iron Warriors, or whatever. I'm not looking at it as, oh, cool, you know, they got Word Bearers with Death Guard with XYZ because they want to cast this on that and blah, 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 and create these weird, crazy combos, you know. We can now start looking at the factions for what they bring to the table, you know. I know Thousand Suns is literally right around the corner, so I'm really excited to see. I'll be very interested to see if they keep the Heretic Astartes or Heretic Astartes discipline, you know, and how that changes, you know, what changes come with that. I'm really interested for Bellicor, whether or not he gets his own discipline or he keeps Heretic Astartes like he did before, you know. There's so many really cool things coming down the pipeline that I think a lot of people are losing sight, you know. I lost Warp Time. No, you didn't lose Warp Time. They just changed that it works the way that it probably should have worked in 8th edition, you know. And so on the flip side, that adds a lot more viability to builds like Chaos Space Marines. They now have a thing. They now have a lot of things that are only Chaos Space Marines, you know. Death Guard now operates like Death Guard. It's not Death Guard plus XYZ. It's going to be Death Guard, you know. And the cool thing is now you can summon with your Death Guard and start creating some of these combos. You know, we're seeing Don Huson out there running around with Epidemius summoning with his Demon Engines, which is a very, very powerful combo if you've never done it. It's really good. And there's a lot of cool Epidemius conversion models, you know, a lot of room for you guys to create conversions, you know. And so there are still these combos out there, but they're not so so powerful that it's like almost an auto include, you know? Like if I took Mortarion, I felt bad not for taking Warp Time because he felt like this giant sink of points, you know? And that's what he is. He is supposed to literally not like live as long as possible and then die in a glorious puddle of goo and kill everything, you know? And that's Mortarion's role on the table. Uh, so yeah, whether or not you like the warp time change, it's here. But the benefit is going forward when you're looking at these lists. You know, now you can look at the list for the power of what they bring. You know, World Eaters getting warp time, I don't think was ever intended because you know Korn hates sorcerers. And so now when I run a World Eaters list, now I'm going to look at what World Eaters does very well, minus using Psychers to supplement the power of World Eaters, you know. I know a lot of people are kind of like sad about this, but I think World Eaters are still very, very, very good. You know, we gained Dreadclaw drop pods now work like how they're supposed to. So now you can disembark, Deep Strike turn 1, disembark those Berserkers, and get your 9-inch rerollable charge. Not a bad thing, guys. So where they giveth, they taketh away. But, you know, I'm really excited to see kind of going forward. We're starting to see a lot more Iron Warriors, which is exciting to me. I like Iron Warriors a lot. We're starting to see, obviously, Emperor's Children has grown into their own with all the Terminators and things like that. It's just a really, really, really cool time. Now, I kind of wish the ACO would have allowed some of this stuff to kind of trickle in, whether it be the 2021 mission pack or maybe some of the facts. You know, we did see more GTs this weekend, but new AdMech was not allowed. All the changes weren't allowed. So going forward, you know, my GT's in 2 weeks. All of this stuff is viable at that GT, and I believe New Sisters is going to be allowed too. So my GT might be one of the first ones that we see a lot of these changes implemented. Now, it is a team tournament, so take that for what it is. But it's going to be very, very interesting going forward. Hey, what's up, Florian? How you doing? Looking at ACO, the Warp Time Mortarion lists weren't exactly beating the field anyway. I agree. And I do agree. And so that might be a little feels batty, but on the same point, what they're doing is they're working towards that rebalancing, right? And I know, Florian, you know, you love running Magnus, you know, but Magnus plus Mortarion was always kind of a very, it was fun for the person running it, but for everybody else, if that person went first, it felt like hard. Like, well, now I got to deal with both of these things, and I have nothing that I can do about this, you know. But now Warp Time becomes like that's Magnus thing or a Thousand Sun thing, and then a Chaos Space Marine thing, you know. And I kind of feel like that's the way it should be, you know. We'll have to see though. We'll have to see. Sad how it's basically a bit tainted by how good Drukhari are. Yes, and that's true too with ACO, you know. It's not really a good judgment for what the meta is, you know, because, you know, out of the top 20, 10 of them had Drukhari in their lists. Drukhari was exceptionally good. Now, post-fact, they're still going to be very, very good, but them losing Dark Technomancers means that we're going to see a bigger variety of Dark Eldar lists, which is great. I think that's much needed. I like Dark Eldar. You know, I didn't feel bad that they were winning, but I felt bad that if Dark Eldar went first, a lot of lists literally had no chance. My buddy Todd, you know, shout out to Todd, who was in my battle report on the battle blog. He played against Matt, the guy I lost to at the tournament, and his Dark Eldar, and he said Matt went first, and Matt just literally tabled him in like 2 turns, and he was like, I couldn't do anything, you know? And yeah, so it'll be really interesting to see going forward what people kind of gravitate towards with Dark Technomancers going away. Racks are still very good, you know? They weren't bad, it's just Dark Technomancers made them ridiculous, you know. Grotesques are still very good, but Dark Technomancers just made them like ridiculous, you know. And yeah, it'll be really cool going forward to kind of see what the adjustments are. And I don't know, I haven't played the new AdMech yet. And reading into the new Sisters, I'm not too afraid of new Sisters. I'm more afraid of new AdMech. New AdMech has a lot more stuff, and I know a lot of people are kind of pissed off with Sisters like auto denying powers and stuff, but they are anti-psychers. Sorry, guys. But we'll have to see. It'll be really interesting to kind of see, you know, what happens with Thousand Suns. I have a feeling Thousand Suns will have stuff like you can't deny certain spells, or if they cast above a certain value, maybe like you can't deny it. That'd be kind of cool, you know, like overwhelming psychic force. Wow. I should write some rules, but no, it'll be really, really cool going forward. But yeah, it just sucks that all the big tournaments this weekend aren't really a reflection of the meta going forward, you know. Um, and I'm excited. I'm very excited going for, you know, and I'll keep you guys abreast at my GT, you know, in Georgia. I will be putting up probably short videos, and then also I will be updating the battle blog with game by game coverage of where I'm at now. Obviously, that'll probably be nightly or whatever. We're there for 3 days, so I will probably put in, you know, multiple entries in the battle blog. But hopefully, if you guys haven't started following it, please follow. And let me guys know what you think. Let me know what I can change, what I can improve. Obviously, I need to take more pictures. I've already had that suggestion a few times, but yeah. And if you guys are going, again, if you guys are going to the Triple Threat GT in Albany, Georgia, please say hi. I would love to take pictures with y'all, give you a high five, whatever. No good games, though. No good games. But yeah. So anything else you guys want to discuss? You know, we talked about the facts, we talked about the points, we talked about the GT book, we talked about a lot of shit. Been here over an hour talking my ass off. So, but yeah, and we'll talk about whatever else you guys want to talk about before I sign out. Oh man, doing these things, your mouth gets really, really, really dry. And I know this isn't water. I should probably go get some water after this. Ah. Oh yeah, and if you guys are not already members, please check us out on the Undivided Chaos Discord. You guys can find a link at literally the bottom of every single one of my videos. And if you guys need a direct link, just hit me up on Facebook or whatever, and I will send you directly a link to it. And Florian is one of our moderators out there, so thanks for being a moderator, Florian. All right, so Will said he's making the assumption that if Thousand Suns came out, you feel like they're going to be similar to Death Guard in that the rubrics might be a bit subpar when you have Zangors for the lower end and Termies for the elite. So I can kind of see that that assumption, Will. So Curtis, John Curtis, or Justin Curtis, I keep calling him John Curtis. Justin Curtis out there, he's one of the play testers, and he's also very prolific on the Discord channels. He's on the Undivided Discord and on the Thousand Suns Discord. He's kind of made it pretty apparent that the Thousand Suns Terminators, the Scarab Cults, are going to be very good in the new book. He said they took a lot of efforts to make the Terminators way better, which obviously if you guys play Death Guard, you know, Blight Lords are still good, but Death Shroud got like way better than what they were. They're so good right now. So yeah, a lot of excitement to kind of revolve around Scarab Cults. But he said that Rubric Marines were really the focus of that book, and that Rubric Marines are definitely going to be centralizing to the Thousand Suns Codex, which to me that definitely should be the way that Thousand Suns play. You know, Death Guard, you can make an argument for Plague Marines or Terminators because they are a very Terminator heavy legion, but yeah, I'm really excited to kind of see what they do with rubrics. He said Zangors are still kind of eh. But yeah, we'll have to see what happens with Zangors. But I have a feeling it's going to be very rubric heavy, and then you're probably going to take maybe some cultists because now they're 5-point cultists to be like backfield cheap, basically like how we use Poxwalkers for Death Guard. But we'll have to see. I hope that with Thousand Suns that they while it should be very psychic heavy, I hope that they rebalance the codex in a way that shooting and combat are a lot more viable. The way the current Thousand Suns codex is, it's very, very, very heavy on the psychic powers. Obviously everybody wants to spam mortal wounds, and then really heavy on the small arms fire to deal with stuff. And there wasn't really anything in between. You know what I mean? There was some heavy firepower, but it wasn't very good, other than like the Leviathan Dreadnought. So I'm hoping that we do get an adjustment to Thousand Suns, and it becomes a more flexible codex, if that makes sense. But yeah, we'll have to see. Yeah, the new site. Have you been using the new psychic ritual, Florian? Yeah, we talked about it earlier, and I feel like that secondary definitely has a lot more play than what it did before. Especially now that the points for that align directly with the new scramblers. That means that now if I take psychic ritual, I can only do that 3 times, but I've already beat your scramblers, and if I can keep you to 3/4. I just beat you by 4 points there. So creates a really interesting dynamic with the secondaries now, and I like that a lot. So Justin is also a Primarch and a Terminator fanboy. No, Justin very, very much loves his Magnus and his Mortarion, and he loves Terminators. I don't know. Which Chaos player doesn't love running Primarchs and Terminators? I'm one of them, just running big, powerful things. I've always been a fan of Terminators too. I think Terminators are just really, really cool. It's like Mech Warrior. Essentially, I know Dreadnoughts are essentially Mech Warrior, but I just really love Terminators, and I love the lore behind them. I love the fact that you have these dudes in just big, powerful suits just kind of trudging across the battlefield, and it's just something really cool about just dropping in 10 Terminators and being like, deal with me. And I know in 30K, Terminators are so good. And I just love the fact that we are starting to see a resurgence, especially after 8th edition, where literally you didn't see any Terminators besides Paladins and the occasional Blightlord Terminators, just the fact that we are going back to having a lot of Terminators is really, really cool. I just love stuff like that, and yeah, that's all I'll say about that. So, you got 70 Terminators gathering dust. Well, at least they're not rubrics gathering dust, because that's a bad thing. Which, by the way, I'm reading the Armon books, man, and I didn't know how badass rubric marines were. Like, I get that they're just dust armors, but indestructible dust armors, that is super badass. But don't even get me started. Armon's kind of a wuss, though. In the lore, anyway. It's just like every time he gets into a fight, like he gets beat up, but then somehow he like psychics his way out of it, plot armor. So yeah, Florian's tried ritual twice. It's good, but still awkward with powerful psychers. Finding room for a shaman is tricky. Yeah. And we talked about that. Zangor Shamans, I feel like, have a lot more play with that. Change casters, Changeling, Heralds of Slanesh. I think Heralds of Slanesh would be a very, very good psychic ritual choice. Yeah, but you definitely don't want to use like Ahriman doing it or stuff like that. Zangor Shaman's great. Put a bunch of horrors in the middle of the table, and just have a shaman go at it. Just creates a lot of. It just makes it more dynamic. Yeah, we'll have to see though going forward. I'm really, really interested to see what ends up going. So. Yeah, and he is like Ahriman is very sensible, and it seems like he's always very smart. But they really point out that he's so super arrogant about everything. Like he feels like he literally can save the world, and that's what he always. And I think that's like really his folly. When he did the rubric, he felt like he was doing a good thing and that he would save the Legion single handedly, but instead he doomed the Legion, and now it's like an eternal. Like, I'm going to save him, but then I don't save him. But I'm going to save him, but I don't want to save him. But, like, just anytime he's in a fight, it just seems like he gets beat up. But then he fights other psychers and he just whoops their ass constantly. So, I don't know, man. Ahriman's a weird... the way they write some of the 40k lore is a little odd. I was a big fan of the Night Lords books, though. I think the Night Lords books were fantastic. So, we'll see. I've only gotten through the first Ahriman book. I'm starting on the second one, but we'll see. The Horus Heresy books are really good, though. I really love those. I know we're going on a tangent, but anything else y'all want to talk about? I got like another couple more minutes before I got to finish cleaning up from getting ready to move. So, but anyways, while anybody types in their last second questions or thoughts, so I do want to say thank you guys for tuning in. I know that I don't get on here that often lately. And so, yeah, with the channel going forward, another announcement. And so I know there's only a few people here now. So I have actually been picked up to be a producer for Frontline Gaming. So what does that mean? It means that I will be producing one of your favorite podcasts. I don't know which one right now. And I believe that I'm allowed to tell you this. If not, Val will slap me. But but I will be producing for Frontline Gaming, one of their new podcasts. And so going forward, I will be doing that for Frontline Gaming, which will be very exciting. I'm not getting paid or anything to do it, but it's a really, really good opportunity. It's a chance to just kind of increase my abilities with OBS and doing content production. I've always wanted to do a podcast. I've thought about doing one heavily, so being able to produce one, and thanks to Val Hefferfinger for giving me this opportunity. So, but yeah, and I'll let you guys know which one actually, you'll probably hear my name because they say the producer's name. So, but yeah, it'll be very, very exciting going forward. And then on top of that, with the channel, I will be coming back in some capacity, part-time at least, come August. So after the move, in August, I will be producing content more often. Hopefully we have the Thousand Suns Codex and I'm going to do a review. Won't really be doing the weekly live streams and stuff. We'll do like periodic live streams like I've been doing now, because I will be resuming my normal job. And I will be updating the battle blog, the new Heretic Wargaming battle blog, constantly, because I really, really enjoy doing written battle reports. I love putting pictures out there and stuff like that. So yeah, it'll be very, very, very exciting. So all of that and much, much more. And then obviously, doing my stuff with Air Force Gaming. So a lot of exciting things going forward. So POVV asks, Codex predictions. So Codex predictions, as far as like what's in the Codex, what Codexes are coming, like what? What do you want to know? Hey, Namhong, haven't seen you in a while, man. What's up, man? So any secrets or rumors I've been privileged to know about. So I can't tell you guys if I knew about. So there's things called non-disclosure agreements, so for example, all the guys who are playtesters have to sign those, and if they say things about those things, then they can get in a lot of trouble, monetarily and otherwise. So being a producer of a podcast, that's not really a secret. I got hired. It's like getting hired for a job and letting everybody know, and I don't even know what podcast I'm doing. But yeah, I really, if I did know something that I couldn't divulge, then I can't divulge it. But I will tell you I don't know anything like that. So but yeah, so as far as Codex predictions, obviously we got the Thousand Suns coming down the pipeline, and I've talked very thoroughly about my thoughts with that going forward. I have a feeling probably by the end of the year we're probably going to see some form of demons. Obviously we're getting the Bellacore supplement here very shortly. Really excited to see what they end up doing there, because they've already confirmed that it's like a Chaos Space Marine / Demons Army of Renown. But yeah, I'm really excited to kind of see what happens to demons. I feel like we'll probably see those by the end of the year, possibly. With Chaos Space Marines probably early next year. We'll be lucky to see Chaos Space Marines by the end of the year. And maybe Knights. I'll be interested to see if we see Knights. We did get the House Raven supplement in the whatchamacallit, the Book of Rust. And so I feel like maybe Knights are coming down the pipeline too, so whether or not that means that Knights plus Chaos Knights at the same time. I do hope that they just lump both of them into the same codex. That would make perfect sense. It's kind of dumb to do a Imperial Knights and a Chaos Knights codex, especially when they use the exact same models for the most part. So, but yeah, we'll have to see. But yeah, that's kind of my predictions going forward. And then obviously we're going to get Orcs, we're going to get Grey Knights, and then yeah, from there, who knows? I would imagine probably some other Xenos, Eldar, because Eldar is a very, very big faction, so I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Eldar by the end of the year too. Yeah, and we'll have to go from there, because I imagine that well, so Toughness 5 Orcs, while scary, they are still 5 or 6 up armor saves, It'll be really interesting to kind of see like if they keep in the custom force field mech and if the pain boy stays around in the way that they are now, because that will create a very very strong very strong footprint for orcs. Having toughness 5 up invone, 6 up feel no pain, just hundreds of boys on the table. We'll have to see. But I don't imagine it's going to stay that way. I'll be very, very surprised if it stays that way. I think that the Pain Boy is probably going to end up being like healing characters or giving feel no pain to characters sort of deal, because that's kind of his thing. Has always been to operate on like the bosses and stuff. Um, but toughness 5 orcs going forward, while it is a scary thing, us as chaos, we are very well aligned to deal with the incoming Xenos threat. We still have access to veterans of the Long War and all of our codexes. Super powerful into that matchup. Toughness 5, okay, well, I'll still wound you on 4s, guy. And then, yeah, we also have volume of firepower. We also have tons of attacks, whether it be through World Eaters, Berserkers, or high AP shots from Thousand Suns. We still have tons of mortal wounds. So, yeah, orcs. I would be very interested to see if they refocus that codex on less of a shooting element, because the shooting, I feel like orcs traditionally have always been a weird, like, they shoot kind of okay, but then they shot stupidly good in 8th and didn't do combat very well, which is not very orky. So, yeah, I'll be interested to see kind of how they rebalance that around boys, and whether or not they kind of go back to being a close combat army, which it's orcs. They really should be a close combat army with shooting second. But yeah, we'll have to see. But yeah, I'm excited to kind of see what happens with orcs, because I love orcs via the lore and the models and all that. I really like orcs. I'm a big fan of most of the Xenos armies except for Eldar and Tau. Eldar and Tau, I do not like either of those. But anyways, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I've been here for almost an hour and a half, and I probably should go get some more work done. So, as always, thank you guys for tuning in. Check us out on Facebook, check out our new battle blog, and join us on the Undivided Chaos Discord, where literally I'm there all the time. We've got Florian, we've got all the guys, we've got Mark Perry on there, Don Huson. We're getting quite a few really, really big name guys on there. So if you guys want to hear their thoughts and stuff, head on over there, and yeah, maybe they'll grace you with their presence. Um, but anyways, until next time, I'll see you guys later here on Heretic Wargaming. Yeah! Excitement.